Have you ever stopped to think about whether the products you use every single day could be affecting your health, in ways you can't even see? Well, today we're going to dive deep into a really surprising connection. It's between all these common chemicals in our environment and one of the most widespread health conditions affecting women today, polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS. It's this complex hormonal disorder that can mess with everything from metabolism to fertility and a whole lot more.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll pull back the curtain on the invisible chemicals that are pretty much everywhere in our daily lives. Then, we'll get into exactly how these things can throw our hormones completely out of whack. After that, we'll connect the dots to PCOS, and I'll break down what the condition actually is based on the very latest guidelines. And we'll wrap it all up with the new patient-first ways to manage it. We've got a lot to get through, so let's get right into it.
Okay, let's start with the world we live in. It's so easy to forget that just a couple of generations ago, our environment was, well, it was totally different. Now it feels like we're swimming in a sea of synthetic compounds. They're in our air, our water, our homes, and our bodies, they have to navigate this brand new chemical reality every single day.
Just think about your day so far. That plastic bottle you grabbed for water, the shampoo you used this morning, even the lining inside the cans for your dinner tonight. They can all contain this huge variety of synthetic chemicals that we're basically in constant contact with.
Now get a load of this number. Between 1947 and 2007, global chemical production shot up by a factor of 23.5. Just let that sink in for a second. In the span of a single person's lifetime, the chemical footprint on our planet absolutely exploded. And this isn't just some random industrial fact. It has real biological consequences. It makes you wonder, how on earth are our bodies supposed to keep up with this kind of change?
So let's move on to the next piece of the puzzle. This massive surge in chemicals brought along a specific group of troublemakers that are a huge concern for our hormonal health. They're called endocrine-disrupting chemicals, or EDCs for short. So, how do these EDCs actually cause so much trouble? Okay, think of your body's hormone system like a really sophisticated set of locks and keys. Your natural hormones are the perfect keys, and they fit into special locks called receptors to send all these critical messages that run your body. Well, EDCs are like chemical imposters. They're like a badly made copy of the key. They look just similar enough to jam the lock, either blocking the real key from getting in or turning the lock when they're not supposed to. The results? Total hormonal chaos. And this isn't some abstract list of scary-sounding chemicals. This is literally a snapshot of our everyday stuff. Take BPA. That's what makes some plastics hard and clear, like in water bottles or the lining of canned food. Or phthalates, they're what give your lotion that silky feel and make a rubber ducky soft and squishy. But what's really wild is that some of these chemicals, like DDT, were banned ages ago, but they're so ridiculously persistent that they're still hanging around in our soil, our water, and, yeah, even in our bodies.
And this is where it all starts to come together. For years, scientists have been chasing down a really powerful hypothesis. Could our constant exposure to these EDCs be one of the reasons we're seeing more hormonal disorders like PCOS?
Well, the evidence from animal studies is pretty hard to ignore. For instance, in one study, when newborn lab rats were exposed to high doses of BPA, they grew up to develop conditions that looked a whole lot like PCOS in humans. This is a huge clue that exposure super early in life might actually reprogram the entire endocrine system, basically setting the stage for problems years later.
But here's the kicker. It's all about timing. That period in the womb is one of the most vulnerable and critical times for development. Exposure to these chemicals, then, can trigger something called epigenetic changes. Now, think of it this way. Epigenetics doesn't rewrite your DNA, the actual words in your genetic book. But it's like someone comes along and sticks a bunch of sticky notes all over the pages, telling your body to read some chapters over and over and to skip other ones entirely. And these sticky notes can change how your body develops and can even be passed down, creating a blueprint for conditions like PCOS.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about a potential cause, but what exactly is PCOS? Let's take a minute to break down the condition itself, and we're going to use the most up-to-date international evidence-based guidelines from 2023.
The very first thing you need to know is just how common this is. We are not talking about a rare disease here. PCOS affects up to 13% of women all over the world. That makes it the single most common hormonal disorder for women of reproductive age. That's a huge deal for public health.
So how does a doctor figure out if someone has it? For an adult, it comes down to a 2 out of 3 rule. They need to check at least 2 of these 3 boxes. First, are menstrual cycles all over the place? That points to problems with ovulation.
Second, are there high levels of androgens, sometimes called male hormones? A simple blood test can confirm that. And third, an ultrasound might show what are called polycystic ovaries. And funny enough, despite the name, it's not actually about cysts. It's just a higher than normal number of tiny follicles.
All right, so a diagnosis is made. What happens next? Well, the way we approach managing PCOS has had a major glow-up recently. We're moving toward a much more holistic, patient-first strategy.
The way we manage PCOS has completely shifted. It's night and day. We're leaving behind that old model on the left, the reactive, here's a pill for that symptom approach. The new model from the 2023 guidelines is all about playing the long game. It puts lifestyle at the very foundation, recognizes that mental health is just as critical as physical health, and, this is the best part, it puts the person with PCOS in the driver's seat of their own care.
So what does this new patient-centered strategy actually look like? Well, first off, lifestyle. Healthy eating, physical activity, that's now considered the primary treatment. Second, mental health is a top priority. Every single person with PCOS should be screened for depression and anxiety. Third, there's a huge push to fight weight stigma. The focus is on healthy behaviors, not just a number on a scale. And finally, the whole thing is built on shared decision-making, giving people the information they need to manage their own health.
And for those who are struggling with infertility, which is a really common and tough part of PCOS, the new guidelines lay out a super clear, evidence-based roadmap. Letrozole is now the official first-line treatment. If that doesn't work, then other options are considered, and IVF is usually recommended as a third-line therapy. Having this clear pathway really helps take some of the guesswork and stress out of a very difficult process.
So, let's bring it all home and think about the big takeaways here. Honestly, just understanding these connections between our environment, our hormones, and our health is the absolute first step towards taking back some control.
And look, this isn't some fringe idea. This quote from the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics says it all. This is one of the most respected medical organizations in the world, and they are saying, loud and clear, that we need to be focusing on prevention. They are calling for education about exposure to these toxicants. This is a massive shift. It's no longer enough to just treat the problems after they show up. The medical world is finally recognizing that we have to go upstream and deal with the environmental source.
And that leaves us with this final question. The science is getting clearer every single day. We know there's a link between our chemical world and our health. But just knowing isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. It gives us the power to ask better questions, to make more informed choices for ourselves, and to demand a healthier environment for everyone. So the real question isn't just what the science says, it's what are we going to do with that power?